We want to fix, we want to problem solve, we want to come home, and we desire our wives to be happy. But ultimately, what do we do? Like, what do we do in this tension? Because there's definitely a tension we're managing, because a lot of times in a lot of seasons, there is a wave that we're riding that's low.
This is the Untamed podcast, where only the few dare to go. We're building a community of adventurous high achievers who refuse to trade our dreams for comfortable mediocrity so that we can unleash our untamed potential. Could you be one of the untamed few? Now, your Untamed hosts, Marc, Lucas, and Joel Fritz.
Have you ever heard this expression, happy wife, happy life?
Yes, I have. A few times.
As a young man, I had just been married, right? And there was this mentor figure in my life, and he sat down with me one day. I mean, seriously, I think maybe this was like 2-3 months into marriage. And he looked at me and he said, Joel, you have got to keep your wife happy. Do whatever it takes to keep your wife happy because, bro, you've heard it. Happy wife, happy life. It's true. Focus all your attention and energy on that. And I'm like, okay. I mean, this is a guy I respected. I looked up to him and I'm like, you're young.
Older than you,
like,
probably.
He's older than me.
Yeah.
Successful business guy.
I've been married 3 months, so
I've been married 3 months.
some
I'm
learning
like,
to do.
Definitely, yes, tell me. Any sage advice I can get right now? I need it. Okay, I understand. I'm lost in the woods. So this kind of started to frame up these ideas in my mind. And when I look back on it, I realized like during that time period, I was thinking of what does happiness look like? And I was actually had this image. Forgive me, but my wife's like in a cheerleader outfit. I come home, and anytime I walk through the door, she's like, "Yay,
give me
Joel,
a J."
Yes. I mean, seriously, like this is crazy. I'm being very vulnerable right now, sharing with you all. So don't judge because
they've judged you a lot so far.
These ideas.
Put in the comments all the judgment that you have on Joel so far.
These ideas we get in our mind, but I'm thinking happy wife equals happy life. And as I'm thinking this, I'm picturing these pictures in my mind. My wife cheering for me and saying, I'm so happy, and encouraging me and saying, you're doing such a great job as a husband. I'm so glad that you drug me out from Atlanta, Georgia to Tucson, Arizona.
The ghetto of Arizona.
This place where I don't know anybody. I'm just so happy, I just can't tell you. The joy is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And these are the images that I have in my mind. The only problem is that I remember our first apartment, and I really liked that apartment. It was in the foothills of Tucson. Beautiful location. I did want to take her to a special spot in that city, and it's gorgeous. So we had this apartment, and I would come home, and I remember walking down the pathways, and then I'd go up, and I'd walk in, and it'd be the middle of the afternoon, and all the curtains were drawn. Yeah. And the apartment was perfectly dark, and my heart would sink when I'd walk through that door because I'm thinking, what's going on? And my wife was dealing with some depression during that time. Yeah. And I was confused. I didn't understand. I mean, I'm like, how can we be married? This is such an amazing moment in our lives. This first year of marriage, these first months, I'm so excited to be with you and to forge a life. And here she is, and the drapes are drawn, and she's not sleeping at night. We're going to doctors to try and figure out what the heck is happening. And all of this is going on while this guy comes to me and says, happy wife, happy life. And to be quite honest, I was just flat out confused. I was frustrated. I'd take out some of that frustration on her. I didn't understand what was happening. And I found myself kind of mad about it and flustered without having any frame of reference of what to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think all of us, to some degree, probably large degrees, have been in a place, we have a desire to make our wife happy. So we hear that, and I don't know who first made up that happy wife, happy life, but it's been around. It sounds
good together, right?
It rhymes, sounds good together. It's maybe on a Hallmark card somewhere. But at the end of the day, it's like, yes, we want our wives to be happy. Mm-hmm. We have a desire as husbands for our wives to be happy. And that's something we hear that expression, we're like, okay, that's something that I want to do. Yes.
That makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Got it.
If my wife is happy, yes, the life would be and will be happier.
Right.
And yet we kind of wrestle with that. And yet nobody that I really have ever met has ever kind of followed it up with even some steps of what they're doing to create some happiness in the home and some things. So there's obviously this kind of a tension that we wrestle with in all this, and there needs to be a tension they wrestle with, because at the end of the day, what do you do when you walk into marriage? And thanks for being vulnerable. I think we all have similar moments, and a lot of times it is early in our marriage, but we have these moments in our marriage where there's just really hard times. And marriage can be a lot of ups and downs, but we kind of ride the wave of highs and lows.
Right.
In the high seasons, then obviously happiness, we feel it, and we're experiencing some level of happiness. But in those low seasons, we ask ourselves, where is the happiness gone? And how do I, as a guy, because as men, majority watching Untamed podcast right now, and our heart that we have to really walk alongside men right now, men have a desire to fix.
Right.
Men have a desire, and we're wired with desires to be able to fix and to be able to problem solve. We do that as leaders in the marketplace. We do that. A lot of us do that fairly often in the opportunities we have in the workplace. And don't say the word you're thinking, because I know what you're thinking. But in that process, we had an inside joke, and we won't go there right now. But in this process, we have these opportunities to say, okay, we want to fix, we want to problem solve, we want to come home, and we desire our wives to be happy.
No doubt.
But ultimately, what do we do? Like, what do we do in this tension? Because there's definitely a tension we're managing, because a lot of times in a lot of seasons, there is a wave that we're riding that's low.
Yeah.
And some tough times like you shared.
So happy wife, happy life. We're going to talk about that today. We want you guys to walk away with some really practical steps of what you can do to actually help your wife in her happiness, but also realistically address that. Now, when I go back to my story, here's how this kind of starts to unfold, man, because it was not easy. I mean, as I left that off, I was devastated. The feeling is unbelievable. I'm 27 years old, been wanting to be married, truly have met the love of my life. I'm super excited to be with her. And now she's not happy. She's not making friends. She's not plugging in like I thought she would. And she's dealing with some stuff. Well, I'm processing all this based on an unrealistic expectation that has been fabricated in my mind. And I think all of us do this, right? We create some fantasy land. And in fact, make sure, here's a call out to our earlier podcast where we called it the comparison trap.
Right.
So if you want to go hear a little bit more about that, Marc does a really good job about sharing when he was in radio and he was hosting a marriage show. So people were coming on and they were talking about their marriages, and he's hearing all these people
give all highlight
reels of marriages.
Yeah, long highlight reels.
Right, and then you have to recognize that that's actually affecting the way that you look at your own marriage. But your marriage is its own specific entity. Your wife is their own person, and that's how it was with me. But it took a long time to realize that, Marc. What happened is that it took over the years. I started to realize, wait a minute. My context of what happiness looks like for her has to be balanced against the challenges that she's facing at any given time.
Right.
So here we are, and this is how the story develops, is that here we are, and my wife is an insomniac. You know, I married her, and she actually is secure enough for me to share this. So, I hope. Honey, I love you. I'm sorry if I went here and you didn't want me to.
She is upstairs right now. So,
but when I married her, she wore a CPAP. And if you know what that is, actually a lot of guys that we're probably talking to know exactly what a CPAP is, but it forces air up your nose in case you have, what is it called? I forget. Drawing a complete blank. But you stop breathing in the middle of the night, and it forces air up your nose. My wife had one at 22 years old when we got married. And so this was real weird, but she had sleep issues from the time she was about 19. So like total insomnia stuff. Yeah. And she was dealing with that, and we're both blown away. We don't know what's going on. In addition, she had started taking birth control. And the birth control was messing with her hormones and she was swinging wildly up and wildly down. And all of this was happening in these first months when we're trying to get to know each other. So you would think a good scenario for your first months in marriage is kind of all the other things outside of your world are kind of remaining the same. So now this big disruption where you're getting to know another human being is at least these other things are consistent. No, I pulled her out of the South. I put her in a foreign city. And I mean, Tucson, Arizona especially.
is unique.
And it's foreign, compared to Atlanta, Georgia.
Very.
And where we had met each other in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But she's experiencing all this stuff. And I'm looking at her wondering what's going on. But then we have to address these things together. Now we're starting to visit doctors. She's starting to see some counselors. And I'm going like, is this what marriage is like? I mean, what's wrong?
And where's happiness in all this?
Yeah, and where is happiness in all this? But you mentioned fix it. And I'm asking myself constantly, how do I fix this? What can I change? Do I have to come home earlier? Do I need to, am I not taking her out on enough dates? What do I do? And my mentor's words are reverberating, going around and around in my head. Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. If she's not happy, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
And I'm scrambling, trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong this entire time. And the mature thing is that the years were going by and things were getting incrementally better. But what I had to do is start to recognize that what she was experiencing was affecting her mood and that we needed to address these things together. And I started to find some of the wins to be showing up when she needed me to show up. That it wasn't that I had this unrealistic outcome, but actually I needed to think, how do I support my wife in this particular moment with this particular circumstance?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that's really good, thanks for sharing all that. I think one of the things that we want to make sure you stay with us, because throughout this episode and all the way to the very end, but throughout this episode, we're going to be talking about some relational KPIs. We're going to be talking about some clear integrated steps for men to be able to really think through and process and to begin to integrate the right steps for their marriage. So please stay with us to the end. I know we're only about a third of the way through right now, but stay with us to the end, because there is a tension here, and there's a lot of tension that you were just sharing. And in all of our marriages, there are tensions that we have to manage. And yet, again, back to that initial desire, husbands want their wives to be happy.
Yeah.
And yet we don't really know how to process happiness in the way that really is like, how do I make my wife happy? Like, what does this look like?
Yes.
And that is a big question. And that's why we're kind of poking fun a little bit at the expression happy wife, happy life, because it's, when it's all said and done, we don't orchestrate happiness for our wife.
Right.
And I know we've wanted to kind of let the tension build a little bit, but it's been building for about 10 minutes. But the reality is we don't, Joel and I, you listening in, we don't have the ability to be the happiness makers for our wife. We just don't. We don't, right? Sounds silly, and that would be even crazy, sure, but we don't, we're not the happiness makers for our brides and our wives. So now what do we do? And again, you've got more of the story, but I think in even the story as it evolves and you continue to share it, it's like in this process, I know I had to, and we even just had fun before we started recording, and those are some of the inside jokes that I alluded to, but we even had fun. Like I asked ChatGPT.
Right.
I said, ChatGPT, because you and I spent a lot of time with ChatGPT as we're creating a lot of amazing content right now.
We need an editor.
We need an editor. Right. So ChatGPT, we are literally pouring in. ChatGPT should be called Chat Untamed GBT. But in this process of ChatGPT, I just said a quick little prompt, ChatGPT, help me in the process and the questions to make my wife happy. What do I do to make my wife happy? I think it was the prompt. And even ChatGPT has some really valuable thoughts. And again, we kind of laugh, but there's some things that we're going to share right now. And some of the things that I began to process through in my marriage is, I know we have this, and I have this mentality to be a fixer. I have this mentality to come home and really problem solve. But a lot of times, and I remember the first time I heard this, and it was really valuable for me in some of the real lows in my marriage too, some of those really hard times, is just to begin to listen. Like the expression was this that I heard, and I have unpacked it for years, over 20 years of my marriage. It's like, to listen is to love, Marc. And as we listen and have a posture of listening, then we begin to really start to hear the temperature of our wives' hearts. We start to begin to kind of process where they have some pain points, where they're really struggling, and also some of the great joys. And we begin to see the spectrum of those two and understand the temperatures of their hearts. And yet, 9 times out of 10, if I were to put a number on it, my wife really just wants me to listen and really just listen with my body language, with the posture, with the type of follow-up questions that show her that I'm listening. And we began to really just do this. The person that shared with me, to listen is to love, Marc, in your marriage. And if you really want happiness in your marriage, which I think as men and husbands we do, begin to be a better listener. Be quick to listen.
Yeah.
And what does that look like to kind of walk out even that passage, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry? But it's like this principle that we would have even in James. What does it look like to be quick to listen, slow to speak? And he said to listen is to love. And he said one of the things, and he asked me the question, he said, and there's a question that I can ask for you guys right now. What's one collective thing that you like to do with your wife? Like, what is that shared experience and that shared activity that you have that is a fun thing that you do together?
Right.
And it was easy for me, even now and back then, to say the answer is going on a walk. We really enjoy to be able to go on a walk together. We got the dogs and we're out and we're having a walk. And he said, great. Now that's a time, for the most part, there's no distractions of phone and technology. You're out and you're walking. Begin to ask some of these questions. And you don't have ChatGPT back then, but begin to ask some questions. What's going to give you some of the pain and some of the struggle in her heart? And what are some of the questions that are going to help you understand some of the joys?
Right.
And some of the things that are great passions and great wins right now.
Right.
And you just begin to just ask great, thoughtful questions, and you just listen.
Yeah.
And that creates a real nice soil that produces a fruit of happiness.
Right.
Within the context of your wife, in the context of where she is.
Yeah, and it's easy to pick up right there and continue the story because that sort of thing basically plays itself out over a course of decades. Kristen and I have been married 21 years now, and I can honestly tell you, I loved her every bit as much as I do now then, but now I have this more filled out meaning of what it means to love my wife. Why? Because I understand who she is. But here's how I got to an understanding of who she is. It wasn't because she met me at the door fulfilling my, these dreams and ideas that were unrealistic.
Right.
It's because as I walked through things, I started to recognize, oh, wait a minute. She has 3 kids and her life is very influenced, mine as well in many ways, but her life is so influenced by keeping these kids alive. How's that affecting her state of happiness and well-being?
Yeah.
Well, how can I actually help or assist in that, right? Do I want to be a person that actually wants to see my wife happy or wants to imagine what she should be doing? And so I started thinking about what are the ways that I can actually engage her and figure out what it is she needs in the moment based on the circumstance. Yeah. And then when I engage her on that front, it was I had the opportunity to assist her or to make her life a little bit easier. Even this is a funny question. We talked about this. We said, when was the last time you asked your wife, hey, is there something that I could do that would help you be a little more happy today, in your happiness today? And you think about it, like we form all these ideas in our heads about what our wife should look like when she's happy and what she needs in order to be happy. But do we ever even ask? Yeah. I mean, seriously, when was the last time you asked your wife, hey, is there something I could do to make you more happy today? Right. And then let her answer, not fill in all the blanks yourself. I mean, that's not bad advice, like from experience. Yeah. It's about listening. It's about listening and understanding the circumstances they're going through. So whether it be our greatest challenges, which was her not sleeping at night, and me being up with her in the middle of the night, oh man, you should have seen when she would wake me up. I don't wake up well, right? And so I'm like,
most guys don't.
And then then I realized, do I care about? Yes, I care about her. Okay, let me help you through it. Then I mean, there are these moments that we kind of fought this battle together, if you would. She fought the majority of the battle. I would never suggest that when I'm sleeping and she's awake and it's a struggle. Right. But when I got up and engaged that, then I'm trying to help her through. She knows then that I understand what she's going through because I was up suffering with her. Yeah. Right? With the kids, just share in the burden with the kids, to share in any other challenges that they're facing at any given time. And that's that. You mentioned a critical key question. And that question is, what is your struggle right now, or what pain are you experiencing in your life? And then the other side, is there something I can do to help? Right? I mean, you just, how can I engage? How can I support? And I think more and more when I think about my idea of what happiness looks like for my wife and how I can help her get there, it is simply not creating a more difficult situation for her, because that's what we can tend to do. Yep. Well, let me fix it. Let me try this. Let me try that. Have you tried this? Well, you're not doing this. And we actually make her life more difficult.
Shut up. Stop talking. Right.
And that kind of a thing. And so the question is, are we making it more difficult for her first? And if we have a bad attitude, if we're creating unrealistic expectations and overlaying that onto her, we need to figure out how to stop. Yeah. That is something that we can do to help our wives be happier. The other thing is that we can ask the question, well, how can I support you in the midst of this? And then when she says, well, I would like it if you do this, then we're like, oh, okay.
Why did I ask?
Why did I ask? And then
but moving
past that and then getting into a place where we're like, okay, I'm going to support you in this. It's going to cost me, but I'm going to support you in this. And then you start to share the burden. And guess what? Mm-hmm. On the other side of that, you can actually see, it might take a little while, but you can actually see your wife feel closer to you. Mm-hmm. And then her body language may start to respond better to you. There are real things that do happen with that. Does it mean that she's going to fulfill that weird idea in your head? No, not necessarily. But you need to pay attention and ask, what does my wife look like when she's happy? Yeah. And how can I participate in that with her?
Well, I think one of the things that, again, we promise some inputs and some KPIs. I think one of the things that we'll share with you, and Joel and I have spent a lot of time really thinking through, and a lot of the content coming out is going to kind of walk people through the 5 spheres. We've really identified 5 different spheres that really holistically create this beautiful happiness within somebody. If there's great awareness and progress and growth and habits and steps to be able, intentionality, to be able to grow in these 5 areas. So even let's go back to the walk. Let's go back to conversations. Like I told just recently, a guy that I know really well, Keith, I said, what would it look like when you come home to just begin to just engage in just asking questions to listen to your wife the entire time she's in the kitchen or the entire time that kind of meal prep is happening, which is the first thing that happens when you get home from work. And he told me like 2 weeks later, he's like, I am amazed to see how much happier my wife is. Yeah. And I'm like, because you're just engaging in conversation with her and you're kind of walking through some of the questions that say more or less, how are relationships? Like one of the spheres for us is relationships. How are your friendships? How are things going with some of your girlfriends? Like, what does it look like right now in your relationships with the girls? Right. Like, are you getting time with them? Tell me about some of the things that are going on.
Questions I want to point out because sometimes we're very general, and maybe it is like, how was your day? But that doesn't necessarily
maybe get to
bring anything up. So but you're like, well, how is that friend that you were talking to on the phone? Just like you said, how are those relationships? Then it gives them permission to talk about something that they're actually interested in and that you're willing and wanting to listen.
That's exactly right. Or like one example, and we're going to actually go in the next podcast and talk more about emotions. But I think it's like even the emotional and the mental conversations that we can have. Tell me right now how is your state of mind?
Right.
Like what right now, if I were to see a snapshot of what you see in your state of mind right now, just your psyche, what would I see? Right now, just walk me through, like, what are some of the consistent emotions that you're feeling right now? How is your physical right now? Yeah. Like, do you feel like you're working out enough? Is there something I can do to support you in that?
Because did you mention the 5 spheres? I don't remember.
No, we're going there in future podcasts. Yeah, you can give all 5.
Yeah, just give a 5 real quick. Yeah, because you're, career is one of those areas, a career vocation, and then you have mental, emotional. So that's the next, physical, relational, and then spiritual, right? And so it's just a frame of reference as Marc talks, but paying attention to those different areas, and obviously our relational sphere is highly geared around those relationships. If you're married, it's every single day, so you have to really have intentionality in that. Yeah.
And the last thing that I would say, because we just gave some specifics around the 5 spheres, and again, the 5 spheres, I'm glad you mentioned all of them, because you can craft your own questions to be able to get a temperature of her heart, how she's doing in all 5. Yeah. And then you just listen. Yeah. You don't fix, you don't problem solve, you just listen. If she asked for that, obviously you step into that, and we easily step into that. But the other thing that I'll just mention that's been helpful for me, and I don't have to go into all 5. I mean, this widely successful and been out for a long time, but it's the 5 love languages. I feel like in the 5 love language moments that I'm having with my wife, I've identified that there's 2 of those love languages that she consistently wants me to show her. Yeah. And she wants me to exercise and practice those. Yeah. So the words of encouragement and affirmation is huge for her. For her. So that's one, and the acts of service. So for me, as I'm processing what she's sharing, I'm putting them into a filter into my mind of saying, okay, am I going to keep encouraging? Can I keep encouraging? Should I keep encouraging? Or is there something that I can do in a way of acts of service, a do action, to be able to walk something out and suggest that as something that I could help her with? But she oftentimes, just those two, she wants me to show those love languages as she's expressing these 5 spheres of what she really is walking through relationally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, in her career, in her physical. She wants me a lot of times to encourage and listen.
Yeah.
But then there are times that there's going to be a way, maybe even down the road, a week or two later, where I can serve her by some way. Let's say it's the physical side. Let's say, because this right now is a real thing. Because of her time right now and lack of having time to really go work out.
Yeah.
She's having a hard time really getting into, she likes group fitness. So going and having a group fitness class to be able to go with some girlfriends and to be able to work out. So me, acts of service, being like, okay, I can hear that. And then I can navigate in the next couple of days to say, hey, I know you have a little bit of time Tuesday night next week. I'll pick up the kids. I'll take care of the things that I can do.
How can I make that a possibility?
How can I make it a possibility and serve you in that way? Because I know that I know and I want you to be consistent in physically working out.
And that's just such a good illustration. You broke it down. That's a real life application. So here's another real life application. The thought process should be, how can I serve my wife and her actual needs? Or how can I listen in a way that I can actually hear her heart? And my example of that would be that I was just having a conversation with somebody recently, and they were talking about how their wife was returning from a trip, and she specifically asked them, please don't bombard me with a conversation right when I walk through the door. Ouch, right?
Yeah.
No, not ouch for me, because I'm a talker, Mark. And you said, this is
you
wisdom.
are a talker, Joel. Yes.
This guy was speaking because you know what my wife does to me? We have 3 girls, all right, which means tens of thousands of words a minute, basically, right?
Coming at you.
And I'm a talker, and I want to talk to her as well, but the girls want to talk to her, and so everybody's talking. And then Kristen looks at me, and I'm like, well, tell me something about yourself, Kristen. You know, like, hey, how are your girlfriends doing? How's the workout going? Can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you? And then she looks at me with that look, and I go, let me ask you a better question. Is there a time in the next 24 hours where you and I could find a little alone time and I could listen and hear you and what's going on in your life?
Maybe on a walk.
Maybe on a walk.
Yeah.
That's a specific application, right? For a specific person that is in a unique circumstance, because we're all in a unique circumstance at any point in our day.
Yeah.
And it's acknowledging her and what her actual needs are, right?
Yeah.
And so I just thought it was so funny as you were talking about that, but it's an important thing. Recognize what she actually needs. Even when it comes to listening, you got to play, you got to play it right.
You do. And the timing's got to be right for that moment.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate this conversation today. I know there's some clear takeaways.
Absolutely. Well, I got to finish the story, though. Okay?
Finish the story.
For everybody,
wrap
because the story is actually a kicker, but it's liberating and frustrating simultaneously. But I hope it resolves some things for you guys. We started this whole podcast with the question, happy wife, happy life. Is that real?
Yeah.
And I told you about the mentor. Well, I think if I want you to hear anything, we want you to hear the advice and actually go put it to work. Ask those questions of your wife, increase the relationships. But when I think about this situation, what happened was absolutely crazy, because I had this idea and was hearing a person basically say, this is what it takes to have a happy marriage. You should do this and you should do that. And I cannot tell you how badly this person's marriage ended up unraveling. It comes to light that we did not have a good marriage. It was all sorts of bad. And they were giving advice to younger people, many younger people, and telling them how they should live their marriages and what ways a husband can serve their wife and make their wife happy, and creating all these images. And in the end, none of it was real. I mean, it was probably born out of a heart of sincerity, a place where they're going, that's probably what they wanted more than anything, was to see their wife happy. But somehow it's coming out in their advice being given to younger men, and saying, this is what a happy marriage looks like. The only thing is that naturally, based on what was happening in that marriage, it's coming out in a way that is unrealistic. It's forming up images. A happy wife, what does that look like? And that are irreconcilable to the person that is actually trying to form that image up. And I think it's like Instagram and the radio show. It's like we're thinking of all these ideas in our head of what a good marriage looks like, and then we're going out and trying to live that out, and we're failing to pay attention to the person that is right in front of us. Yeah. And I like I said, the end of that story is frustrating and liberating simultaneously. Why is it frustrating? Because somebody gave me advice that resonated with me, and I had to learn it for myself that it didn't really ring true, that it was not necessarily accurate. And in fact, happiness for my wife was going to be contingent, or is going to be unique first to her. And then it's going to be affected. Her moods are going to be affected by the things that she's going through. And then when I start to ask myself, what can I do about that? My answers are going to be a lot less of, I'm trying to get her to look like this, and a lot more of, how can I just walk with her through her challenges? How can I be present? How can I encourage her? How can I remove the barriers to her happiness? What can I do as a good husband? And I'll tell you what, that sort of a thing makes a difference. And I think our hope collectively here would be that men would hear this, and they would be encouraged and challenged to try. Because I think oftentimes what happens is we get frustrated because the unrealistic idea in our head isn't coming to fruition. Right. And we need to step back, re-engage, and then make sure that we are applying effort. Because there is nobody out there that should think for 1 second that they should have a good marriage if they're putting nothing into it. Yeah. If you are leaving it all on the field at work and coming home and having nothing for your wife and family, please don't expect the return. Please, guys. Yeah. Don't do it. But if you want to engage, Marc and I have been through it 21 years, and I can genuinely tell you that I want to be married to this woman for the rest of my life. Yeah. She is my joy. She is my light. I love being here, but I have had to learn what happiness looks like for her and how I can get her closer or give that gift to her.
That's so good. I think the last thing that I would say, and then we should probably wrap up, is, and it's just a great reminder, and I normally, probably every time, start when I get the honor and the privilege to officiate a wedding. I always have this sentence where I say the truth that the most sacred, most intimate relationship that God has ever made is marriage. And yet in the beauty of that, the guys have to know right now that are watching this or listening to this, God cares so much about your marriage. God absolutely wants you to have conversations, to pray, to talk to him about your marriage, to ask him to help you, to lead you, to guide you, to show you the ways that you can communicate better, to show you the ways that you can give great respect, that you can build trust in your marriage, to show you the ways to truly create effort and fight for your marriage in a way that every single day we should put the effort and fight into our marriages, because God cares more about the relationship of marriage than any other relationship. It is such a beautiful thing to know how much God is for your marriage and God cares about your marriage, no matter where you are right now, whether you're on a high swell right now or you're at a low place. God loves you. He loves your marriage so much, and he's in this with you. Joel and I do have one up on you, 22 and 21 years of marriage. We're here as well to help you. But most importantly, God is in this to guide you and to lead you and walk with you, to help you be the husband that he wants you to be. He is the one that also will author in and create happiness within your wife. He's the one that does that as well. That's the spiritual side of the 5 spheres that we never, ever, Joel and I, lose sight of, because that's the one that we want to talk to you about even more, and we want to engage with you. So appreciate you guys following. Appreciate you guys
more with that, Marc. That
engaging with us.
Profound stuff. So
just appreciate this episode. Thanks for being vulnerable too, Joel.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't miss out on the opportunity. We're going to be doing a retreat. You can check out the page, Untamed Few /adventure-retreats, coming up, SoCal surf trip. And Yeah, all sorts of stuff. Need coaching? Reach out. We'd love to engage you.
If this episode sparked something in you, please subscribe and even share it with someone who's ready to take their life to the next level. We're always on the hunt for men who are looking to become untamed and release their untamed potential. Also, if you found value in this conversation, then please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It makes a huge impact in building our community. We'll see you next time when the adventure continues, or maybe when yours begins.